Lesson 1-9, Multiplying and Dividing Integers. So far we've learned about what integers are, we've learned how to add integers, and we've learned how to subtract integers. So in this lesson we'll learn the rules of multiplying and dividing. First, it's good to remember that multiplication is the same thing as repeated addition. 2 times 5 is the same thing as 5 added together twice. 5 plus 5 is 10. Which is the same thing as 2 times 5. Instead of adding things over and over, we use multiplication as a simpler way of solving. 3 times negative 4, nothing changes when there's a negative number. This one is representing negative 4 being added 3 times. 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12, and since it's all negative being added together, it's a negative 12. Same thing when I multiply these numbers. 3 times negative 4 is a negative 12. So when you see one negative sign in the two integers you're multiplying, your answer will also be negative. For example, negative 2 times 5. This is going to be a negative 10. There's one negative, so my answer will be negative. In this example, negative 2 times negative 5. Since there are two negatives, they actually cancel out. So my answer will be a positive 10. Let's look at these rules more closely. The product of two integers with the same sign is positive. Meaning, if I said 2 times 5, I'll get 10. They have the same sign, they're both positive, so is my answer. What if they have the same sign but they're both negative? Negative 2 times negative 5, the two negatives cancel out. I also have a positive 10. So same sign, positive. The product of two integers with different signs is negative. So for example, negative 3 times 4. One of these integers is negative, so my answer will automatically be negative as well. So if you see one negative, your answer is negative. If you see two negatives, they cancel out and your answer is positive. Remember, this is only for multiplying integers. Now, the product of 0 and any integer is 0. So 6 times 0 is 0. Negative 8 times 0 is still 0. So positive or negative, anytime you multiply by 0, your answer is 0. So these are our multiplying integer rules. Let's practice a few examples. 2 times negative 6. I see one negative, so my answer is negative, and I just multiply the numbers. 2 times 6 is 12, negative 12. 4 times negative 3, negative 12. 7 times negative 2, negative 14. How about if you have three numbers or integers being multiplied? Well, this time, if you want to know if your final answer is going to be positive or negative, count the number of negatives. If there's an even number of negatives, your answer will be positive because those negatives will cancel. If there's an odd number of negatives, your answer will be negative. So in example A, I see 1, 2 negatives. They're going to cancel. My answer should be positive. So first look at the first two. Negative 4 times 8, that's a negative 32, times by the last integer, negative 2. The two negatives cancel, so I have a positive 64, which I can just write as 64. In our next example, I see only one negative sign, so my final answer should be negative. Do the first two numbers first. 6 times negative 3 is negative 18. And then times it by a positive 5, and I get negative 90. Now here, I could do negative 7 times negative 14, and I could figure out what that equals. However, eventually I'm multiplying it by 0, and anything multiplied by 0 is just 0. All right, dividing integers has the same rules for multiplying, which is nice. The quotient, so that's the answer to a division problem, of two integers with the same sign again is positive. For example, 8 divided by 2 equals 4. Negative 8 divided by negative 2 also equals positive 4. The negatives cancel out. The quotient of two integers with different signs is negative. So just like multiplying, if there's an odd number of negative signs, your answer will be negative. So an example of this might be 16 divided by a negative 4. That equals negative 4. Now, this one might be new for you. Anytime we multiplied something by 0, we got 0. However, if you ever divide by 0, your answer is undefined, and you will write this word out in your answer blank. Here's what I mean. First of all, if you took 0 divided by any number, the answer is just 0. So if I have, let's say I have 0 people and I want to divide those people into 6 groups, in each group there would be 0 people because that's what I started with. So 0 divided by a number is 0. However, when you do a number like 8 divided by 0, this is impossible. We call it undefined. I'm going to abbreviate it like this. Think if you had 8 people and I wanted us to divide into 0 groups. I wanted 0 groups to exist. That doesn't work because I still have 8 people that need to go in a group. So we call this undefined. When you are finding the average of something, that involves dividing integers. Remember first, so if we were going to find the average of these numbers, we first want to add them all up, and then we divide by the number of numbers that we started with. So in this case, since I added up 5 numbers, I divide by 5. We'll do an example in 1 second. First, some division practice. Negative 32 divided by 8. Well, there's one negative, so my answer is going to be negative 4. Negative 48 divided by a negative 6. The two negatives are going to cancel, so it's really 48 divided by 6, which is positive 8. And negative 56 divided by a negative 4. Again, the negatives cancel. I get a positive 16. Oops, actually, I think I did that math wrong. 14. 14. Positive 14. All right, let's clear the board here. Let's find the average of these numbers. So I'm going to add them all up. 4 plus negative 3 plus negative 5 plus 2 plus negative 8. Start left and work your way right. 4 plus negative 3 is 1. So I'm done with those two. Plus negative 5. So that's the same thing as subtracting 5. That's negative 4. So I'm done with that one. Plus 2. So I'm at negative 2. Done with that. Plus negative 8, which is the same thing as subtracting 8. Plus negative 8. That's going to be a negative 10. Now I divide that by how many there were. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative 10 divided by 5, since there's one negative, my answer is negative 2. So remember how to find the average. This is a song that you can teach yourself if you want. It helps you to remember the rules of multiplying and dividing integers. It goes to the tune of Row, Row, Row Your Boat. Pause this video if you would like to take a second to sing the song to yourself. All right, that brings us to our lesson check. Please complete problems 1 through 5. You're either multiplying or dividing. Pay close attention to those negatives, and then bring your answers to class.